Hello, my name is Marcus Beer. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the repairing standard and the essential changes that the Scottish Government introduced on the 1st of March 2024. The repairing standard is a set of legal requirements that every landlord must meet. This ensures that all rental properties are safe, in good condition and habitable. It is important that you meet those repairing standards, and it's important to know what changes were introduced last year. Let's dive in. There are 13 elements to the repairing standard that I will cover here to give you an overview of which conditions you need to meet. The first one is the structural integrity. That means the property needs to be wind and watertight, and all elements of the property need to be in a good standard. So that includes the roofs, the windows, the gutters, the downpipes. It needs to be fit for human habitation. Secondly, all installations must be in good working order. That includes your heating and all the appliances that you as a landlord provide to your tenants. It also covers the plumbing, the electrical installation and any pipe work. Third one is fixtures, fittings and appliances. So as a landlord, you provide various appliances to your tenant, and it is your responsibility to make sure these appliances are always in good working order, and it is also your responsibility to replace them if any of them break. And that could include washing machine, oven, hob, extractor fan, and you cannot simply let something fall into disrepair and not replace it or not repair it. The next point is fire detection systems. All properties must have smoke and heat detectors in their properties, and as of 2022 those must be interlinked. So typically this would have to be installed by an electrician, and you will get a certificate to say that this fire detecting system meets all the required standards and has been properly installed. Of course, it is the tenant's responsibility to test the smoke and heat detectors on a regular basis. You also need to have carbon monoxide detectors in your property, and they need to be in the rooms where the carbon producing appliance is. The only exception from that is if you have a gas hob. You don't need to have a CO monitor in the room where the gas hob is, unless of course your boiler is also in there. But typically if you have a gas fire or even a wood burner in your property, you need to have a CO monitor there. Under the electrical safety, you need to make sure that you have an EICR, that's an electrical installation and condition report, which certifies that your electrical installation is safe. This has to be done by a registered electrician and has to be repeated every 5 years. On top of that, you also have to have a PAT test for any portable appliances that you provide. If your tenant has their own portable appliances, then they don't have to be tested. As a portable appliance counts everything that has a plug, so anything that can be plugged into the wall, even if the plug is invisible, or even if you think that this appliance isn't particularly portable. So you wouldn't move your washing machine around, but it would still be a portable appliance if it has a plug and if it's not plumbed in, or if it's not connected to the mains electricity. The next point is the gas safety for a property. If you have a gas boiler in your property, you need to have a yearly gas safety check, and this has to be carried out by a gas safe registered engineer. You then will receive a certificate. We also recommend that your appliances, your boiler, and if there are other appliances like a gas fire, are serviced yearly. You should make this all available to your tenant, not only when they first take over the tenancy, but also when it comes to the yearly renewal. In terms of the fire safety, there is also another regulation that you need to adhere to. You also need to adhere to the Furniture and Furnishings Regulations 1988, which basically means that all your furniture that is provided to the tenants need to be fire safe. You can normally identify by a little label hanging off your furniture that says fire safe. If items are not properly labeled, then they should be removed and not included during the tenancy. And again, this only applies to items that you're providing to your tenant. Now we're coming to the Legionella risk assessment. Every landlord has to perform a Legionella risk assessment, which basically assesses, are there any risks in your property in terms of Legionnaire's disease? This is a fairly simple test and can be carried out by yourself. It doesn't need a registered tradesperson to do this. There are forms available to fill out, but it is important to repeat these tests either when the circumstances of your tenants change or if you have a tenancy changeover. We usually recommend to repeat the risk assessment every 2 years. Number 10 on the list is the Energy Performance Certificate. There have been long discussions about which standards a property needs to meet, and at some point it was discussed that all properties should meet either a D-rated energy efficiency or a C-rated energy efficiency. Currently, these discussions are on hold and no standards have to be met. However, you need to make sure that you supply an energy performance certificate with an EER, that is the energy efficiency rating, and this needs to be used when you advertise for a property, but it also needs to be handed to the tenant when they move in, and it should be prominently displayed in your property. And we're back to safety. In terms of access and escape routes, you need to make sure that there are clear and easily accessible access routes and escape routes. So doors mustn't be locked from the inside. So if you have a flat and you would come out of the flat going through the common stairwell, you must be able to just simply open the door and run out. It goes without saying that this is very important if there is a fire in your property. And a lot of properties probably don't meet that standard and still have to be upgraded. I'm going to cover this further in one of the changes that the Scottish Government introduced in March 2024. Number 12 on the list is the common maintenance. So if your property is part of a larger property, there might be a number of flats in the property, then you need to make sure that even the common areas are compliant with a good standard of repair. If that is not the case, you probably need to liaise with the other owners to make sure that repairing standards are met. This applies typically to stairwells and entrances. Number 13 is the right of information. Your tenants should be given all details about the repairing standards, so they are fully educated and can make a judgment whether their property that they live in does meet the repairing standard. You also need to let your tenants know how they can complain and report faults about the property. So in the first instance, your tenants should of course report any issues with the property, but if you don't resolve these issues, then they have a right to complain, and it should be outlined in this information that you give your tenants as part of the tenancy how they can raise a complaint. If a landlord does not repair their property, does not meet the repairing standard, then the tenants can take their claim to the first tier tribunal in Scotland. The first tier tribunal can then issue an enforcement order that forces you to carry out the repair. So a typical scenario would be that your tenant detects damp in their property. They bring it to your attention, but for whatever reason, you don't resolve the problem. The tenants can then go to the property ombudsman or to the first tier tribunal, raise an action against you, and essentially force you to carry out the repair. So, in summary, the repairing standard is crucial for ensuring that rental properties in Scotland are safe and suitable for tenants. Landlords must proactively maintain their properties, comply with safety regulations, and address any repair issues promptly. Tenants must be made aware of their rights and obligations of their landlords to ensure a safe living environment. From the 1st of March 2024, the Scottish Government introduced further points in addition to the repairing standard, and they have now been enforced by the councils. The first point is that all water pipes must be free of lead. Basically, lead is a health hazard, and therefore the government has stipulated that lead must not be present in the water. You can carry out these tests via professional companies or Scottish Water, who will, after the lead test in the property, send you a letter to say that either you have exceeded the expected level of lead in your property or your property is absolutely safe. If the expected levels have been exceeded, you then have to consider how you can make this property safe. It would typically involve changing some of the pipes that contain lead. It has also been stipulated that all electrical installations must now have an RCD, which is a residual current device. All properties must have fixed heating systems. That means that you cannot get away with having a little oil-filled radiator that you put into your bedroom and say to the tenant that must be the heating source. It must be fixed. That means it either has to be plumbed in or it has to be wired in. You must achieve in one room at least 21 degrees and in the other rooms 18 degrees. and that is at the same time as the outside temperature is at -1 degree. All installations for fuel other than gas and electricity must also be in a reasonable state of repair. So this could be biomass, LPG or oil. And it has previously not been mentioned in the repairing standard, but has been mentioned now as of March 2024. Any common parts to the property must now be safely accessed and must be usable to the tenant. And quite a new thing is that all properties must now have access to sufficient food preparation space and food storage space. So a kitchen that simply has a table in it would not be classed as sufficient. You must have cupboards overhead or built on the floor where you can store food, and you must also have sufficient workspace where you can prepare food. And then the last point, or the last addition that was made, is that all tenements must have a secure entry system and safety exit locks. And that means when you're based on the second floor, you can basically buzz somebody in via the entry phone, and when you go out of your property, so once you've left your flat, you come to the main door. The main door must be locked from the outside, but you must have a facility of simply going out by pressing a handle down or turning a knob. And this is obviously a safety measure, a fire safety measure, but it will also probably help the energy efficiency because these doors will now be permanently closed rather than just being quite open. So in summary, the repairing standard has been in place for a long time. But in March 2024, the Scottish Government tightened the rules for the repairing standard. All landlords have to comply with them. It ensures that your tenants have a safe environment to live in, and especially that the areas around heating and fire detection and food preparation are improved. If your tenants are not happy that your property meets the repairing standard, they can report you to either the Property Ombudsman or to the First Year Tribunal, who can issue an enforcement order. So it is very important that you're up to date with these regulations and that you make sure that your property is in good condition. I hope this overview was helpful. You've learned something new, and I will leave a little checklist for you to download that could help you to assess if your property meets the repairing standard and the update from March last year. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time at the Property Cast.